Okay, so Parshas Ki Sisa has in it, maybe the greatest sin of all time, right? The sin that whenever we think back, what was the worst sin ever? Would be the egel, right? The golden calf, and that's all depicted in Parshas Ki Sisa. And if you want to know why it was such a terrible sin, I mean, just think about this. These were the same people. This was us, right? We like to realize that it was us, but this was the same people who went through Egypt. They saw the hand of God. They saw the 10 plagues. They witnessed that. They got to the sea, and the sea splits before them, and they walk inside and they say the word Zeh Kili Vandeu. This is my God. They pointed Zeh, Zeh, someone he pointed this, right? They saw God that clearly. And then they get to Matan Torah, they get to the giving of the Torah, and they get this revelation there was never a revelation like that. Again, they heard God speak to them, so they saw God, they heard God. I mean, it was just the awareness of Hashem must have been so deep, so deeply ingrained, you would imagine. And then Moshe says, just hang on tight. I'll be back in 40 days. Don't go away. I'll be right back, right? And then 40th day comes and they get nervous. And then all of a sudden, idolatry, idol worship. They make this golden calf and they're worshiping it. And then they say the words, Ele Elokecha, this is your God. I mean, how did that happen? I mean, you experience God in such a way. So, I mean, obviously we need to explore this topic like this. We have to learn something from this episode. But one of the things that's hard for us to understand about it is that, like, idol worship for real, like, how are we supposed to relate to a sin of idol worship? Like, we can understand a lot of sins. I can relate to someone who goes into a Pizza Hut and gets a pizza. I can understand that. I can understand someone who has a trouble with Shabbos. He wants to have a barbecue. He wants to go to the ball game. He wants to whatever. I can get all that. But idol worship for real, like, what is the temptation of idol worship, of bowing down, serving some foreign item or object? What is that? Where does that come from? So I think it's kind of worthwhile to kind of just analyze a little bit and see, does this at all relate to us? Or is there anything we can learn from this? This temptation seems to be non-existent with us. So there's a famous Gemara in Sanhedrin, and that the Gemara talks about how idol worship, in fact, was a very prevalent temptation. It was a very serious temptation. In fact, throughout the Torah and throughout the books of the prophets, we find that there was constantly people were falling, even great people were falling to idol worship. It was something that was a tremendously difficult temptation until the time of the Anshe Knesset Hagadola. And there was a whole episode which discusses there how they prayed to remove this temptation from the world. Now, one of the things that the Talmud says there is that, what was this temptation? He says, I don't remember the exact wording, but something to the wording was something to the effect of the Jews never worshipped idols except to permit immoral behavior publicly. Right? The whole point of idol worship was to permit immorality. So, now we're starting to understand a little bit. Apparently, it's not the idol itself, the bowing down to the idol, or the serving a sacrifice to some, pile of rocks. That wasn't what it was. It was trying to get something else. It was basically the same lusts that we're familiar with, but it was so powerful that it brought on idol worship. So what's the connection exactly? We understand lust for immoral behavior. That's something that's very prevalent, right? Today, maybe more than ever. But what does idol worship have to do with that? So I once heard an explanation from a Rebbe of mine back in the Mir Yeshiva, Rav Yaakov Moshe Katz. This should be healthy. So he said an amazing concept. He said, I'll try to give an analogy to make this make sense. Okay, imagine you have a person who's struggling financially, but not just struggling. His bank account is at zero. Or in Israel, they have bank accounts that go into minus. You can actually have a minus in your bank account. You go there and it's minus, whatever it is, what you owe the bank. Okay, and he doesn't have any money in his account, and his credit cards are all at capacity. He has no more room on his credit cards, and and he has bills coming in, and his credit score is awful. He's not getting any more credit cards, right? And he has electric bill that comes in. He owes $350, and if he doesn't pay it by X date, they're shutting it off. And he has a water bill, and his wife has to go shopping, and he's got all this going on, right? You can imagine the pressure of such a person, right? So that day, okay, he's involved in a business deal. He's trying to close a deal. If he closes this deal, he'll have $1,000, and he'll get through the day. He'll get through, maybe the rest of the week, maybe. Okay, and he puts everything in place to get this business deal going. He closes the deal, $1,000, and he can get through the week. Without that deal, he's stuck, right? So you can imagine this person, after he sets everything up, so the deal should go well, right? What's there left? It's a daven. That's all he has left. He's going to wake up and daven and daven very sincerely, because he knows it's right now. He's done everything he can do. It's up to God. That's it. Right now, imagine in the course of that day, this person gets a temptation. Maybe I should, maybe I want to stop in and eat something, I shouldn't eat. I'm hungry. And then the only thing available is not kosher. And maybe I'll go, or maybe it's, Shabbos comes and he's thinking, I'm thinking maybe I want to check my phone, like such a person will be like, today I need God too badly. I need God too much, right? I'm too reliant on Hashem. I don't want God angry at me now, maybe after I'm done with this, but right now I'm too reliant on Hashem to get him angry at me. So I think this person is pretty much safe, if you will, from sin. Compare that and contrast that with somebody who, let's say, is in a completely opposite situation. He's got the savings account with a couple $100,000. He's got the checking account is full of money, and he's making money, and his wife's taking, he has more money than he knows what to do with, right? He's got his IRA and his annuity. He's got everything all set up. He's not worried about money. So for such a person, if he's tempted with this temptation, he doesn't have that, well, I don't want God angry at me, because he doesn't, so to speak, in his mind, he doesn't need God right now. He's fine. He has any trouble. He needs to go shopping. He's got plenty. Here, which credit card? You want the platinum, the black? Which one you want? He's got it. He's fine. He's got plenty of, right? So in other words, when a person feels that he is reliant on Hashem, he needs Hashem, he can't sin. He can't sin. He needs Hashem too badly. And when a person feels that he hasn't made, it's much easier to sin, right? It's much harder to say no, because he doesn't, in his mind, he doesn't need Hashem. The idea of idolatry historically was that a person realizes that this part of nature, this part, let's say it's the moon or the sun, is actually a conduit for bringing down Hashem's blessing into the world. Okay, the Derech Hashem talked about this for those who were in that class. But basically, Hashem runs the world, of course, and he's the source of everything. But he has little conduits along the way that he sends the blessing through. And it could be the sun is a conduit for that blessing, and it could be the tree is a conduit for that blessing. And basically, when a person worships them as entities in themselves, what he's saying is, I want to leave God out of this. I want to go straight to the conduit. I want to worship the conduit and get what I need. I don't want to have to deal with Hashem. This was the purpose. Just to give you, make this bring this down to light. It's a cute story. I don't know if it's a true story or not, but it goes back to the founding of the state of Israel. A delegate of Bedouins came to the Knesset to meet with the with the prime minister and the president and whoever else was in the Knesset at the time, to kind of for foster relationships between the two groups. So this delegate of Bedouins, they come into the Knesset building and they're walking around, they're looking and they see someone standing by a sink, water's coming out, and they walk over to this thing and they like, how do you use this? How do you do this? And the person there doesn't understand what they want. He's like, how did the water come out? And he's like, oh, look, you just pick up the faucet. They're like, oh my goodness, it's amazing. You can just pick up the faucet and water comes out. And they say, where do we get one of these? And he says, let's see, you go to any hardware store. You go to a hardware store, you pick up a faucet, and then you get it. No big deal. So they go to the hardware store. I guess they had money. I don't know. Bedouins have money. They buy the faucet. They get a pretty box, a box already. And they go back to their Bedouin encampment. When they get there, they gather everyone together and they tell them, you have no idea. We got this item, this thing that, all the times we go out to the well to get water, it's all over. We don't have to do it ever again. We have this. And he opens it up and he pulls out the shiny, sparkling metal thing, and they're all looking at it. Ooh, wow, never seen that before. And he says, just wait till you see what's going to happen when I pick up this faucet. We pick up the handle. He picks up the handle, and of course, nothing happens. And the reason why nothing happens is because that faucet is just a faucet, right? It's just a conduit. The source of the water, of course, is somewhere else. So that's basically the analogy as to how idol worship works. Like, you're worshiping the conduit, you're not worshiping the source, right? You're not recognizing the source. And that's really what Avodah Zarah always was. So by people worshiping these various conduits, it could be they were even able to affect what they wanted, so to speak. But of course, it was Hashem testing them and showing them, oh yeah, you want to worship the sun? Yeah, I'll give you the blessing through the sun. Just realize that that's Avodah Zarah. That's idol worship. So idol worship was basically a way to take Hashem out of the picture. When you take Hashem out of the picture, well, now we're free to do what we want. We have we're safe. We have our freedom. We have our independence. We're not dependent on God anymore. We don't necessarily have to listen to God. And that was basically the idea. So bottom line here is that this concept of idol worship is actually something that's very relevant to us, right? We live in a culture where, if you want to ask people what is their goal in life, what does success look like? It's someone who has independence, whether it's financial independence, right? Whether it's he has his health and everything's all okay, he's all set up. He's not reliant on anyone, on anything. He's got his vaccination, he's got his whatever, right? He's not reliant on anybody else. He doesn't have to think about anyone else. And that is a very valuable trait. Of course, a person should strive for that. But what we should realize is that if a person comes to the point where he says, well, I don't need God, look, I have this, that's already tantamount to idol worship. That's already saying I'm reliant on the things I have, and I don't need to come on to Hashem. Well, now you're holding by that level. Right? Even a person who has all these things needs to realize everything comes from Hashem. Realize is the last point that when we bench after we eat, we say a blessing. We bench Birkat Hamazon. That first blessing, we say He, God, is the one who gives us everything that we have, and that blessing was instituted whether a person is rich, whether a person is poor, whether he has the bank account that never ends. Even Bezos, right? I don't know if he benches, but if he would, it's for him too. Everyone has to realize we're all reliant on Hashem, regardless of our circumstance, both for our financial stability, our health, and everything else. So hopefully we realize that this lesson indeed does apply to us. I wish everybody a wonderful Shabbos.